Oh, look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.
Welcome back into In the Trenches. I'm your host, Will Ortner, a Couch GM podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I've got Cal offensive graduate assistant Winterhawk Leighton coming onto the pod. Love Coach Hawk, played with him. Now getting to see him on his journey, it's absolutely fantastic. He's been a coach at a couple big name programs. Started out at Central Washington, was at Idaho State for a brief stint, ended up over at Hawaii. Now he's over coaching offensive line with the Cal Golden Bears. He's got a great story. Plus, if you have, a son, a nephew, a cousin, the local kid at your YMCA that is going through the recruiting process, you can hear some stuff about how a college coach looks at it from that side. And then if you're a Cal Golden Bear fan, you're getting an excellent coach and he's going to hype you up. And I can already tell by our conversation today that he is just going to keep building and building and building and help that program take the next step that I know Coach Wilcox and that staff wants to do. They're absolutely fantastic. Before we get into the episode, I want to make sure that I talk to you guys about Black Label. I'm having issues right now trying to make sure that I get the Black Label Pure Power in front of you. You're going to want to make sure that you give Pure Power an opportunity and a chance. I've been using it for the last couple of weeks, almost a month now. I've seen all of my numbers just gain and gain and gain. I'm even going back and trying out my 225 test again, seeing if I can peak and get a couple PRs there. Love their product, love their stuff. Absolutely fantastic crew over there. Love them so much for everything that they've been able to do with us. If you want a 15% discount, you can use the code CouchGM. You'll get 15% off their products. They're absolutely fantastic. I stand behind them. And as always, remember, grind, hustle, win, repeat. That is Black Label. Thank you guys so much. And without further ado, let's get into the interview. All right, welcome back to In the Trenches with Will Ortner, a Couch GM podcast. Right now, I'm sitting here with offensive graduate assistant Winterhawk Leighton over at Cal. You're working with the O-line now, Winterhawk. It's great to have you here. Appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely honored to be able to talk with you and catch up a little bit. Being able to play together and have that kind of relationship in the locker room goes a long way. So I'm super excited to be here on the podcast, and obviously been following you ever since you've been getting going on this. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, we go way back. I want to start with like your whole journey, and then obviously we'll break down more about you've been at Cal now for a little bit, but you were over at Hawaii for a couple of years. So let's get started with you came over to Central. Obviously, we played together. Shoot, I think I recruited you if I remember right.
Yeah,
I think you were one of my
youngins. Yep.
But talk about how you start out, you're playing football. I think you hold the record for most jerseys worn in a game, couple touchdowns, offensive lineman, all that stuff. And then we'll get into like kind of your transition into being a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
So you came into Central. You had a couple of years where you were a center for us, played a little bit of guard. Talk about how you got to Central, why you chose Central, and then your experiences as you're going through on the offensive line.
Yeah, so I went to Ferndale High School. I'm originally from the Lummi Nation Reservation up by Bellingham, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of coming out of high school, I didn't really have a whole lot of recruiting going on. Kind of like a lot of us Central guys, that was kind of the only opportunity we had. At the Division II level, there's just not a whole lot of Division II West Coast football. Even now, it's even less now, right? With the two California schools that are shut down with Azusa and Humboldt.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I played tight end, DN, but in a wing T offense, so it's not much of a tight end. It's more of a glorified tackle. So, but got a scholarship offer from Coach Scott Power that you may remember. He recruited my area. Him and Coach Shoemaker offered me. It was my only offer. I had another offer from a couple of NA high schools in Montana. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go that far away from home. So I ended up having an awesome host in Will Ortner on my official visit. And that was the only official visit I did during January. I had some other trips planned for after that, but it was more, I just kind of wanted to be at Central, be close to home. It was a place where I could play football and get my degree.
Hell yeah. So you obviously played. Now, did you make it 2 or 3 years before your injury, if I remember right? And then what kind of happened with that injury?
Yep. So I medically retired after my redshirt sophomore year, so third year, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I herniated two discs in the spring ball before that 2019 season, that redshirt sophomore year. And I remember, you probably remember too, that I wasn't really planning on playing that year. I was going to
Mhm.
take a medical year regardless and come back the next year after that.
Mhm.
Because I injured it in spring ball, and then I did the cortisone rounds. I did 3 rounds of those, and it didn't really help as much as I would have liked it. But especially playing offensive line, you're in there down in the trenches. There's not a whole lot of um, wiggle room in there. You're kind of down, stuck in a position that's already uncomfortable as is. To add
Right.
two herniated discs, that's pretty tough. Um, so I went the whole 3 quarter zone rounds, didn't have the results I really wanted to have out of there to be able to play at the level I wanted to. Um, so I originally told Coach Fisk that, hey, I probably need to take a little bit more time, do more physical therapy before I'm ready to come back from this. So he's like, okay, cool. We'll give you a medical red shirt. We'll take care of that stuff. Um, and just kind of stay around the team, stay around this stuff. Don't want you to get too far away from it. I was
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. Um, so, and then I went to a different doctor to kind of get like just a second opinion of it. And then that's when they introduced the PRP treatment. I know you had one on your knee, I believe.
I've had 5.
Five. Yeah.
I've had 2 on each knee and 1 in the foot. So, yep, I'm well aware of PRP.
Yeah. So I did the PRP treatment. I did it on Monday of game week and was able to suit up on Friday and didn't play that week. I didn't start playing until about probably week 3 or 4 of that redshirt sophomore year.
Mhm.
But I was just super fortunate to kind of have that one season. And then it eventually started kind of wearing off, as you know, like it doesn't
Yeah.
last forever. Um, and then it just kind of got to the point where having trouble kind of getting even in the stands, just trying to finish out the year and whatnot. So kind of went home after the season, kind of took some time, went back to my doctor to kind of get rechecked out. And kind of it was a family decision, just that was best to kind of hang them up, finish my degree, and kind of see what's next for me.
Mhm. So, what convinced you to get into coaching as soon as you made that decision, that really difficult decision, to hang it up with a medical retirement?
I've always wanted to coach.
Mhm.
I always knew I wasn't going professional. It was kind of something I already knew out of high school. Like,
Right.
okay. Um, so I always knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I always loved the kind of X's and O's and kind of like the chess match of the football stuff. And I also like kind of that relationship. I have 2 younger brothers myself, and I've
Mhm.
always had to be that kind of big brother role model
Mhm.
uh, for them. So it was always kind of one of those type deals that I've always felt like, oh, that's a really good fit. I can see myself doing this for a really long time. So
Mhm.
after I medically retired, I asked Coach Fisk, like, hey, is there any possibility that I can kind of stay around while I finish my degree? Because I still had another year and a half
Mhm.
before I finished my undergrad. So I asked him, I was like, hey, can I just stick around, kind of learn what coaching college football is like? Because I don't know what it's like. I wanted to kind of figure it out. I always thought I'd go back, teach math, and coach high school football,
Mhm.
but I ended up loving it. So I asked Coach Fisk in that January, and then I believe in that March, we hit COVID and
Yeah.
everyone got kind of sent back. So it was a really weird time because I was kind of like just now getting into it and I wasn't really sure what it was and what it wasn't.
Mhm.
Because for us, a Division 2, like, well, I guess everyone got sent home back in like March,
Right.
whether you're Division 1 or Division 2. Um, so we all went home. We were just kind of waiting to get back for summer workouts. I remember Coach Hoyam was sending out packets and stuff, which
Mhm.
was really awesome. But after that kind of medical retirement, I just kind of focused on kind of learning a little bit more about football. I just kind of watched different games back and forth, both at the NFL level and college level, just because there was no games on, so it was all reruns. So I just kind of kept through YouTube, just kept watching stuff back and forth, and
Mhm.
then we had some stuff on our own huddle catalog. But so we eventually got back into it, but it wasn't until that summer of 21 till we were actually able to work out because we didn't get that season in that 2020 year. Um,
Mhm.
GNAC decided to hold off on the year, but other schools got to go play. So, but at Division 2, we didn't have a season at all. We had the one game in Montana, in the
Right.
spring. So that was kind of my first taste of actual coaching.
Mhm.
Even though I was still a student assistant at that time, that was probably the first kind of like eye opening. It was like, okay, cool. This is something I really do want to do.
Mhm. With D2, obviously, we know it can be a little bit more trial by fire because you're asked to wear more hats than you might be asked to wear if you're a student assistant or a graduate assistant, which we'll get more into at a Pac-12 school, an ACC school, even a Big Sky school. So,
Yeah.
can you take us through kind of your responsibilities as a student assistant over at Central?
Yeah. So as a student assistant, primarily, well, I guess kind of like mine was a little bit different because right when we got back to playing, I was able to be a graduate assistant and
Right.
was able to kind of move into that role. But typically, like a student assistant, what I would have done, say we had a season and stuff,
Mhm.
um, occasionally get to travel. It depends on kind of what the funding is at that level.
Mhm.
If they have an extra room in the hotel, if you can have an extra plane ride, that stuff kind of depends. But you're kind of doing a lot of the busy work that no one really wants to do, and that's kind of how you add value in this coaching world,
Mhm.
especially when you're a young coach. Um, you always got to kind of find things that okay, Coach Fisk and Coach Tink might not want to do. Like, okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
do it. I'm gonna do everything else I can do, just to kind of add value, make them want to keep me around when my
Mhm.
time's up. Um, so what I did is I just kind of cut up huddle film. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just literally just pressing spacebar after every play, hitting spacebar after every play. And I know you helped out a little bit too.
I remember
Um,
those days.
yeah. So those
Yeah.
that wasn't it was is what it is. But it was just a lot of cutting up film, tagging film, like okay, this is first down, second down, third down, all the way out through that data. There's a
Mhm.
great thing called PFF now that does it all for us, and I'm so thankful that's not a thing anymore. Um, so it's very helpful on that stuff. Just kind of coming from a GA student assistant doing all that little work.
Mhm.
Um, but there's not a whole lot of coaching that comes into the student assistant realm. It kind of depends if you have obviously been around the team, like you have a little bit more of leeway. But like if you're kind of a student assistant coming from a sports management program that wants to kind of get into college coaching, you might not get as much
Right.
leeway because you don't have as much built up in the bank. You kind of got to build that from scratch.
Mhm.
Um, but just as a student assistant, it was mainly just kind of also helped Coach Torgerson with the inventory stuff. Just because Division 2, like we talked about, right? There's not as many people. Like your D
Right?
line coach is your equipment guy. That's
Mhm.
just kind of how it is. Here at Cal, we have 4 or 5 full time guys that are in there doing all of it.
Mhm.
Um, so it's definitely very different. You have to wear a lot of different hats and get spread out pretty thin sometimes. So you got
Mhm.
to find extra time to kind of put into the coaching stuff outside of it.
Right, that extra grind. What was your
Yeah.
biggest challenge, switching from a player to now coaching and coaching, a lot of guys that you played with?
Yeah. No, it was that was a difficult adjustment, especially because I wasn't a senior either. Like I
Mhm.
was a redshirt sophomore rotational player. Like I wasn't like a day one starter, preseason all conference guy. So I knew I didn't have that kind of repertoire on that, and I could never ever speak on that. Um, but I did know like what it really took and what the playbook kind of asked a lot of our guys.
Mhm.
But as far as kind of challenges, it was obviously very difficult because it's the same guys you're kind of hanging out with after the games, all
Mhm.
the way throughout summer, going to concerts, working at the gorge and stuff, and then go in and be like, okay, you need to be here at 6 a.m. ready to go, all warmed up. That's kind of a hard thing to ask, but I looked at it as more of a challenge. If I could do this with my peers, I can
Mhm.
do this with really anybody.
100%, right.
Yeah.
I know also, probably our last Central question, but you did a little bit of recruiting, when you were at Central, again, having to wear multiple hats. What kind of went into that? How did you learn about what Central might be looking for, how they targeted certain players? What were you looking for in recruiting, and how'd that transition go?
Yeah. So like Division 2, it kind of depends on the school with how many scholarships they have out to give.
Mhm.
I think Central Washington is in a pretty good place with scholarships. They can break it up and make it spread out a little bit wider. Um,
Mhm.
so, uh, but just kind of as far as that stuff, in that fall of 21, when I got my first actual coaching job, which was the
Mhm.
GA as the running back coach and recruiting coordinator,
Right.
just kind of going through that stuff was kind of just how to kind of put together a roster. Like, um, the transfer portal wasn't obviously what it is now. Like it was kind of
Mhm.
just getting in the grooves. In Division two, you don't really have the same kind of division or transfer portal impact where your roster might change a lot in a year.
Mhm.
But just kind of at that level, you're just kind of looking for guys that will just kind of help you win. Like Division two, like you might not have the 6'5", 310-pounder coming out of high school that's ready to play. You might have a little bit more of a project with the bigger guy, or you might
Mhm.
have a smaller guy that is ready to play, but he's 6'1", 6'2", but
Mhm.
still a dude, right? So it's kind of
Mhm.
those kind of measurables you don't have. Um, and that's kind of the difference between a lot of Division one, Division two guys is
Mhm.
kind of those measurables and kind of all that stuff. Um, but just kind of as far as challenges, or sorry, not challenges, recruiting, you guys always just want to find the right guys to get into your building because that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't matter if the guy is 6'5" or 6'1". You just want the right guys that will help you with the core values of your program and help your program win.
Right, guys who fit that culture.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the more difficult things in my brief 3 months where I was helping out. It was like it's not how good he is necessarily. It's does he fit? Does he work in
Right.
this system? Because he can be as good as he wants to be, but if he doesn't fit, that's not someone that you want in your program.
Yeah.
Um,
You and I
so
have plenty of guys like that.
yes, yes. Well, they come through, and I'm sure at this point you probably know more.
Yeah.
Um, so now let's talk about your transition over to Hawaii. I know that our old head coach, the same head coach that recruited both of us to Central,
Yeah.
he ended up making the jump from Eastern Washington over to Hawaii to be the offensive coordinator. How much of a role did he play in getting you out to Hawaii? How much was that like you beating the pavement, making calls? Hey, I want to coach here. I want to coach there. How did that all unfold? How'd you end up in Hawaii?
Well, so I was at Central from obviously playing and then until that kind of winter signing day
Mhm.
period. I went to Idaho State for a few months. Was there
Great.
for spring ball before I actually got to Hawaii. So I wasn't really looking to leave. I had a lot of great people there in Idaho State and I have a lot of good things to say about that community.
Mhm.
But I wasn't really looking. Coach Shu just reached out to me one day. It was like, hey, we have an O-line GA spot open. Like, is that something you'd be interested in? And I was just like,
Mhm.
it'd be awesome to be back with Coach Shoemaker. I mean, he
Mhm.
gave me my first opportunity playing. And then just to be able to go coach at a place that has the kind of history that Hawaii does, I
Mhm.
couldn't say no to that.
Yeah. So what is that? What's that like coaching in Hawaii? That place and that university. But I think everyone initially when they hear Hawaii, they go, "Oh, f yeah! Like I get to go be in Hawaii. I get to go surf every day. I
Yep.
can eat poke. I can, hang out. It's going to be great. It's sunny all the time. It's paradise." But then as a football coach, it presents its own unique challenges. I mean, you are taking massive flights
Yep.
for all of your away games, getting players to want to come out to Hawaii or keep Hawaiians in the state, keep them at that university.
Right.
Uh, what were some of the challenges, or I guess blessings in disguise as well, that you found as soon as you got to Hawaii?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was different because that was my first FBS opportunity. So
Mhm.
I'm coming from Ellensburg, Pocatello to Honolulu, Hawaii. Like those are pretty different geographical places.
Right.
Obviously, super fortunate for my time there, and but just kind of as far as challenges, right? Like you're in the middle of Pacific Ocean.
Mhm.
Your closest road game is still a 5-hour flight. Like it's not. Um, but like you get used to it, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what the kids know and stuff, and it's like not we're taking high school guys, so it's not like they really know what kind of getting up on a flight is.
Mhm.
Um, and we do a lot of research and study to try to make sure we put our guys in a good position because obviously long flight times hinder kind of athletic performance if you don't approach it the right way.
Mhm.
But as far as kind of that stuff, we did everything as best as we could. There was a lot of changes that we had to kind of make on the fly just to make sure our guys were ready. Sometimes
Mhm.
they'd be a little sore, so we'd have to tweak our schedule a little bit, make sure that we're taking care of our bodies because we'll have a road game, but we got to come back next Saturday ready for a home game, pretty
Right.
and be quick turnaround. So like we would leave on like sometimes a Wednesday night, Thursday. It's not going to be much different to what I'm going to be doing here at Cal because obviously we're playing in the ACC next year.
Right.
Um, but as far as that stuff, like you would leave pretty early on that stuff because you need to kind of get adjusted a little bit to the environment when you're going to play in Laramie, Wyoming, and you're playing at 5,000 plus feet elevation. That's pretty different, right?
Yeah, from
Um,
sea level.
in November too.
Right.
So you got to kind of take precautions that way to make sure you're not only performing your best for that road game, but also not letting it affect the next week when you come back at home, which is kind
Right.
of it's a hard balance, right? Because like you would like to kind of be over the longer, but then it kind of messes with your clock and all the kids' clock. And you come back and then you're like, oh shoot, we got to kind of reset that clock. So that was kind of a struggle. That is just it just is what it is on that stuff.
Mhm.
Kind of getting into the recruiting side, obviously, there's a lot of Hawaii kids on that team, and that's
Mhm.
kind of it's an awesome thing because it's a beautiful culture there in Hawaii. Like it's a place that I really grown to love. Um,
Mhm.
but like I can't remember what our total number of Hawaii kids were on our roster, but it was a good chunk, and they took care of our guys from the mainland. They came over, um, and then but as far as kind of get mainland kids, it's a little bit harder. Usually, you kind of build those relationships throughout the recruiting process when you go see them at camps, go visit them
Right.
at high schools, bring them on official visits. You just got to kind of build that relationship or work a little harder on some of
Right.
that stuff. And then the nice thing is that Hawaii, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that
Mhm.
maybe a Boise State has, but you
Mhm.
get kids that want to be there and play for the H is the
Right.
is the most important part, right? They're not all it's not all super fancy. Now they're getting some new renovations over there. They'll start getting a little fancier and look a little prettier. But you get kids that want to be there and play for the state of Hawaii.
Love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, shoot, I just took a visit back to our alma mater and they got some new bells and whistles.
Yeah,
And I had to give the young players a little bit of a hard time, like, oh, you guys are getting soft now, but there's nothing better than leaving an environment better than the way that you found it. And it sounds like you guys were
absolutely.
doing that at
Yeah,
Hawaii. I want to dive into another recruiting question here because a lot of players as they're going through they don't understand how the recruiting process works when you're
yep.
at Hawaii. How is that different from Central? Are you recruiting guys at a younger age, uh where, like, I know at Central, like, most of us didn't hear from Central until end of junior year, senior year. That's kind of how the recruiting process goes. Are you out there, throwing offers down to 14-year-olds like Lane Kiffin, or how's that work?
Not pretty close. Usually you're obviously recruiting guys earlier to kind of build that relationship with those high school players. So if there's a Hawaii kid or someone that a coach already has a relationship with, like a family friend, then you get those kind of
Then the
14-year-old,
14-year-old
15-year-old,
gets called.
16-year offers, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but as far as kind of like a generic recruiting process from Division II, like you said, like I didn't hear from Coach Power, Coach Shoemaker till a summer camp before my senior year when I went
Right.
to a showcase up in Tacoma or can't remember
Mhm.
where it was at. But Hawaii, you kind of start discovering your 25s as soon as that December signing day hits. When you sign your 24s, you start kind of going through your 25s in that early January window, so that when coaches go on the road after that February signing date,
Mhm.
or sorry, in that January period with the FBS, you go out to schools to go visit. Where at Central, that's probably when you're having your official visits, you're having your guys on campus.
Right.
FBS, your kids are typically signed in December. You might have one or two
Yeah.
FBS kids out of high school that will have official visits in January.
Mhm.
Um, but typically, like our coaches we're on the road all of January to go visit 2025s, 2026s, and just kind of get into the school,
Mhm.
meet the kid, kind of know what he's about, and make sure it's a good fit, kind of relationship wise. And then sometimes that's when they send offers when they go out on
Mhm.
the road and stuff, and be able to go talk to the kid and see face to face with a kid goes a long way, and just be able to shake their hand and kind of build that relationship. But and then we start kind of doing official visits, or sorry, unofficial visits for spring ball
Right.
time with March and April. We bring guys out. Sorry, they come out to us.
Mhm.
Just kind of watch spring ball, kind of see if okay, this is a good fit. And then
Right.
that June official visit window is kind of when they come in before the senior season, and then they'll sign in December. So it's a
That's
little bit different clock.
Yeah, yeah, especially since you guys have those 2 signing days, because you have the December one, which has really turned into, like, your main one, but then, like, when I signed, which isn't that long ago, 2016, there was 1 signing day for all levels.
Yeah,
You signed in February. It's crazy how that clock has changed. When you were over at Hawaii, you were over there for a couple years. You coached under head coach Timmy Chang.
Yep.
He's a Hawaiian legend. I mean, he put up big time numbers out there. I think Colt Brennan was the one who beat out all of his records, right, at quarterback out there. Is that kind of how that went down?
Yeah, he was the quarterback right after Timmy.
Right. So, what was that like playing for someone who was a legend at the university that he was now the head coach of?
Yeah, anywhere you go with Timmy Chang anywhere in Hawaii, everyone knows who he is as soon as he walks in the building. But no, he's an awesome dude. Like he loves the place. Like he went to high school down the road at St. Louis. Like
Mhm,
he born and raised in Hawaii. This was always his dream job, and he
mhm,
treats it that way. It was a very special place to him, and he super awesome guy to work for. Super family oriented. Like
mhm,
him and his kids, they're always running around playing hide and seek throughout the offices with the other coaches' kids. So it was a cool atmosphere to kind of be around because you don't get around that um, quite as often.
right.
Um, but it was cool to kind of work from just kind of because he knew every piece of history where I knew a little bit. Like I obviously knew who Timmy Chang and Colt Brennan were,
Mhm,
but I didn't know like every alumni that was an All American over there or got
mhm,
drafted. So it was cool to kind of learn about some of that stuff.
mhm,
Um, just kind of working for him. And then obviously we had a lot of coaches from the state of Hawaii. That was kind of a big thing with him is that he wanted a lot of people that knew what it was like to be in Hawaii and kind of fight some of those challenges that we have in recruiting or fighting some of those challenges with the flights that knew how to do it and be
mhm.
very successful at it. So got nothing good things to say about Coach Chang. Gave me an opportunity that I'm forever thankful for on
Love
that.
it.
But
Yeah.
awesome dude.
Love that. One, and you've clearly taken that to your new school, Cal. How did that transition go for you? How'd you end up? Obviously, you've been there now, what, a couple months?
Yep.
How'd you end up over at Cal being you're a GA offensive line coach again?
Yep. So I was starting to graduate from Hawaii.
Mhm.
Was one semester away. Um, didn't finish it, but because I moved to Cal in December, and it's not like um,
You
I could
can't
have finished it
commute.
and still had the Cal job, so I had to go. But I'm in a certificate program. I have a degree that says Berkeley in a
Mhm.
year, so looking forward to that.
It's a
Um,
pretty impressive certificate there, bud.
it's not too bad, not too bad. But no, so Zach Tinker was the STQC at
Mhm.
Cal, and he's
What is
actually the
that,
one
by the
that
way? Can you
huh?
say the full? Can you say the full thing? I know it, but
Yep.
for people who
Sorry. Zachary Tinker was our special teams quality control, kind of our assistant ST coordinator.
Mhm,
So he's the one that actually got me over to Cal. He's the one
mhm,
that put my name on the OC's desk because Coach Tinker was the first guy I graduated or was a GA for
mhm,
um, over at Central for those first 2 quarters before he took off to Oregon. But he ended up at Cal. It must have been a year or two later,
mhm,
um, and was there this last season with them. But he's the one that vouched for me and put my name on the OC's desk. And things happen pretty quick in the coaching profession. Like you can be up and out pretty quick.
right.
Um, I remember Coach Tink texted me on a Monday morning and called me and said, "Hey, we have this opening. Is this something that you'd be potentially interested in?" And I was like, "Absolutely. Like I'd love to come to Cal, be closer to home, be able to play in the ACC, and kind of
Right.
do all those things, right?" Um, and they're coming off a great year. They went to a bowl game this first year, and we have one of the higher returning production rates in all of college football with
Mhm.
some pretty good young players on our team. So I was pretty fired up to kind of come be a part of that stuff, come play for a guy like Coach Wilcox and Coach
Yeah.
Flesh, all those guys. Um, so, but as far as that transition goes, I got that call from Coach Tink Monday morning and said, "Hey, okay, cool. You're interested. Okay, I'll put your name on OC's desk. He'll
Mhm,
call you Monday after, or he'll call you later this afternoon. Just have
mhm,
your phone on. You get a number from 510 area code. Just kind of be ready to answer and talk ball."
mhm,
So did that. Phone call went good. He's like, "Okay, cool. Get me your transcripts and stuff. Just gotta make sure you can get into the school of Berkeley." Um, and then he's like, "Okay, let's plan to interview Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Hawaii time."
mhm,
Um, ended up interviewing on Wednesday. He offered me the job after the Zoom interview, told me to take a day, kind of think on it. And it was
mhm.
actually signing day of the December signing period. So we were having all of our Hawaii signing day celebration.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
I remember going to Coach Chang and kind of talking about it and kind of breaking down a little bit because Hawaii was home for me for 2 whole
Right.
years. We built those relationships, Coach Shoemaker and all those guys.
Mhm.
Obviously sad to leave all those or leave Hawaii at the time, but was super fired up about the opportunity, and I accepted the job later that night. I didn't wait till the next day.
Mhm.
Um, but that's kind of how it worked out. It all happened in a little 3-day span. It didn't happen over months. Like it was just real quick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, shoot, there's no like LinkedIn. They're not checking you out on like what's his LinkedIn page say? On that phone call, are you like breaking down gap scheme blocking or is it more of just an overview of your offensive philosophy?
The Monday call was more of like, okay, I want to kind of know how this guy is. Like, is he gonna
Mm,
fit on my staff? And
gotcha.
Tink knows how I work and stuff, and he was able to vouch for me. And our offense coordinator Mike Bless just talked about how much respect and
Mm,
stuff he had for Coach Tinker. Um, so he always brought that up. Said it. I respect the hell out of Tink. Uh,
mhm,
he's a great dude. Like his word means a lot to me, and for him to
mhm,
stand on the table for you like that, that goes a long way for me. But the Wednesday one that was more offensive line techniques. He wanted to hear me get up on a board and coach. He wanted me to go through drill tape and kind of talk about like, okay, technique with 1-2 steps and all
mhm,
that kind of O line fundamental stuff. He wanted to know that I can coach it and teach it
mhm.
to a 17, 18-year-old incoming freshman.
Right.
So that was
Making
kind of like
sure.
that was more of the interview part. Was that part where I have
Gotcha.
to show I can actually coach and know what I'm talking about and not skip over details because those details go a long way.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I mean, you and I both know O linemen age like fine wine. Takes time, takes years,
Yep.
takes a long process. You got to have a bunch of coaches that can coach the players in that way.
Absolutely.
How has the transition gone from Hawaii to Cal? Obviously, so you made that decision what middle of December, right? It's around the signing day time.
Yeah. December
To
20th, I think.
right. So to now, at the time of this recording, we're first couple days of March.
Yep.
How has that transition been? I know you guys aren't quite into spring ball. You were still like doing your winter lifting and stuff like that. How do you get acclimated with the coaching staff, with the boys, and start that process?
Yeah. So I mean, it was as far as kind of getting acclimated, the staff made it super easy. Like it was
Mhm,
awesome. Like I flew into Oakland. Actually went home for Christmas and then New
mhm,
Year's and then flew down to Oakland to kind of get situated and stuff. Um, so like I flew into Oakland. I showed up to the stadium where all of our coaches' offices are, and they got me checked in a hotel and kind of it was slower during that time because coaches were just getting ready to get out on the road.
mhm,
So like coaches were kind of in and out. So it was kind of cool because like there wasn't a whole lot of coaches in the office, but Coach Blesh and Coach Gilbert would be in the office. So I'd get to kind of talk with them a little bit more, kind of build that relationship with them when we're not super busy. We're
mhm,
just kind of recruiting, watching tape, kind of talking about what we want to install. Because Coach Bless was the offense coordinator at North Texas, but this is his first year as offense coordinator at Cal.
gotcha.
So he was kind of putting that together with Coach Gilbert on that stuff. So it was good to be able to spend time with them, spend time with the GAs and all the younger QCs and stuff.
Mhm,
Um, and then whenever Coach Blesh and Gilbert go on the road, I'd be able to go talk to Coach AT and Coach BT, our receivers
mhm,
and running back coach, and just kind of spend time with those guys along with Coach Safell, Coach Johnson,
mhm.
Coach Coder, Coach Jock, and all those guys. So it was cool because like we weren't obviously GAs don't go on the road. Like
Right.
it's only the full time coaches. So like GAs would stay back. We're obviously helping the guys that are on the road, but after
Mhm,
that, there's not really a whole lot left for us to do. So I was
mhm.
able to kind of go spend some downtime with those guys, get to know them, and kind of start building that relationship and that piece. So it was really good kind of timing as far as that goes, because there wasn't a whole lot of um, items for us to do, I guess, outside of helping the guys on the road and making
Right.
sure our guys working out were where they're supposed to be.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So now, obviously, you're one of the offensive line assistants. How many offensive line coaches do you have over there at Cal? And then how does that work
So it's it,
with you and the other coaches?
yeah. So it's just me and the offensive coordinator. The online GA from the past 3 years is our
Mhm,
tight ends coach, and he's heavily involved, which is awesome. It's super
mhm.
good to have him there because he played at Cal for 4 years, was projected as a draft pick, but he actually had the same kind of injury that I had to, and had to do the same kind of thing. I think he had 3 herniated discs, which is insane. I couldn't
Oh,
imagine
he's
having
one better than you?
one better. He just had to one up me on that. Um, but no, he's an awesome dude. It's awesome
Mhm,
having him around, especially when Coach Bless is busy doing offensive coordinator stuff, and I'm trying to get caught up on like
mhm.
techniques and stuff are pretty similar, but as far as kind of like communication and
Mhm.
kind of order operation, that stuff's a little bit different from coach to coach
Right.
and how they kind of want to do things. So it's kind of cool to be able to kind of spend some of that time with Coach Tefel and kind of learn on some of that stuff. But
Mhm.
um, as far as online coaches, there's just the offensive coordinator and me.
Awesome. That's
So
fantastic. So you only have one chain of command there.
yeah.
How are you guys handling the transition? Obviously, conference realignment. You and I
Mhm.
grew up watching Pac-12 football. We love Pac-12 football. Unfortunately, last year was the final season of it. You guys have made the transition along with Stanford from the old Pac-12 to go to the ACC. How has that changed in how you guys are preparing for the season? Has it done anything, in fact, to a change? Is it just like doesn't matter who's on the schedule next week? We're gonna go out. And we're gonna kick their butt. Are coaches talking to you about? Hey, you coached at Hawaii. You understand how travel can affect us. What are some tips and tricks that you learned? How is this transition period all working for you guys right now?
Yeah, so it's going good. I mean, obviously, like that was kind of one of my bonuses, right? Was coming from Hawaii and kind of
Mhm,
dealing with that travel structure and kind of how to get your guys prepared for a 5 hour flight.
mhm,
Now at Cal, we have a different kind of flight budget, so we're able to fly a little bit more comfortably on some of that stuff. So we're able to um, kind of make sure our guys are a little bit more comfortable for those long flights when we go to say Florida State or we go to Auburn.
mhm.
Um,
Ooh, that's
so,
so
but
cool.
yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. It's weird. I saw the conference schedule and conference all standings, and I saw the
Yeah.
basketball schedule just released for next year, and they're going to play North Carolina and Duke and conference games, and
It's
um,
crazy. Big step up from Nicholson Pavilion and
for sure,
Tomlinson Stadium.
yeah. No, it's super cool, but just kind of as far as the travel goes and all that kind of stuff, it's gonna be a little bit different. It's not gonna be like a drastic change because you still don't want to like fly out on a Tuesday and then be messed up for the next week when we're at home. But we got
Mhm,
a pretty pretty good schedule. I like how our schedule's laid out. We have
mhm.
4 games by week, 4 games by week, 4 games, and then
Yeah.
conference championship. So it's not like we're playing a bunch of um back to back road games where we go fly back and
Mhm.
go fly back and forth. So it's kind of nice on that side of things. 'Cause we don't really have any kind of quick turnouts. I think we have one Friday game after um, a home game or something or a road game. I can't remember. We play Wake Forest on a Friday, but I can't remember
Mhm.
the direct order of the schedule. But as far as that stuff goes, it's ACC is going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be playing high level football. Obviously, very sad about the Pac-12 and how that kind of shook out a little bit. But
Mhm.
fortunate that we're able to at least be in the ACC in a high level conference and go play Florida State, Miami, and go play all those schools over there. So super cool coming from Nicholson Pavilion to going into Florida
Yeah.
State.
Yeah, going to see some of the big time teams that we watched and played on NCAA 14 video
Right.
games.
Yeah.
Big change for that. That's awesome. I'm happy for you there. When you guys have spring ball coming up, and if I'm a Cal Golden Bears fan, what should I kind of expect out of spring ball?
So we start March 18th. Cal has spring break after the first week of spring ball. So our guys are going to be with us for the first 4 days and then
Mhm,
go spend spring break with their families and take care of what they need to. And then they're going to come back to us for the
mhm,
last 11 practices or so. But just kind of, it's going to be high level football. We got a lot of good returning players and we added a lot throughout the transfer high school classes. We've done really well in the recruiting. I feel like we got the right people in the building
mhm.
to kind of fill some of those spots that we needed to get over that hump. I mean, Cal lost 7 games last year, but a lot of those games were pretty close that they lost. I think they lost to
Yes.
Auburn by 3, lost to
Mhm,
USC by a touchdown, I believe. So they're definitely on the right track in that stuff. And then to add additions to the roster that are going to make us a more talented team and be able
mhm,
to play at a higher level, especially when we go play in the
mhm.
ACC. Super fired up. There's going to be some playmakers out there. Receiver, I don't can't speak on what we're doing defensively, but as far as offense, it's going to be a lot of fun and running the ball right down
Love
there.
that. Hey, PTR. Sometimes you got to pound the rock,
Yeah,
right? I know you're
absolutely.
in. I know you're in all the coaches' ears. Like, let's run the ball. Let's run the ball. Let's run the
Right.
ball. That's that attitude. That's awesome. I can't wait to check out some of these spring games, trying to catch you on TV or something.
ACC Network.
Hey, there you go. That's right, because I normally
It's
go to Pac-12. ACC Network. I'm gonna get to watch you out there on some spring ball games. Hopefully, ESPN won't do you like they did me and let me know that I was going bald.
right.
So to wrap up here, Winterhawk, one last question. Going into this season, what are you gonna bring to Cal? If I'm a Cal Golden Bears fan and I just saw that Winterhawk Leighton, aside from having maybe the most badass name in college football coaching, what am I getting out of you, and how are you going to make my university better?
Well, I mean, that's what you're going to get out of me is you're going to get consistent hard work regardless. And I'm not a guy that's always going to be up and down where I might be fiery one practice and down super quiet the next day. Like I'm pretty consistent, even keel. You're going to get a lot of, I'm going to demand a lot out of my guys. Because we've obviously been on championship winning teams, and there's a recipe that comes with that stuff. You got to be able to come in with the right attitude and work and make sure that you take care of your body prior to that, because playing offensive line is a physically demanding position, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure you take care of your body in the best way. And also with all this kind of travel stuff, we got to make sure we're taking an extra precaution on some of that stuff, extra rehab, prehab, all of that kind of stuff, to make sure your body's able to play 12 games, hopefully 14 plus games if we make that 12 team playoff that's coming up.
Yes, sir.
So, but what you're going to get out of me is a guy that's going to show up every day, demand out of our guys, but I'm not going to demand anything that I wouldn't do either. I'm not going to say you need to be here at 6 and then I'm rolling in at 6:01. Like I'm going to be there at 5 a.m. before that, making sure that I have everything. I'm ready to go by 6. So just kind of the preparation stuff, making sure that I'm taking care of my guys. Guys are going to know that I love them. That's kind of always kind of been a big thing for me, playing with Coach Fisk, even Coach Shang, Coach Shoemaker, all those guys. They built the program out of love. And I think that's kind of an awesome thing. Your guys want to know how much you actually care about them, because if you just yell at them and do all this and say be here at 6 a.m. commanding up downs like that, sure, that works for some people, but might not work for every single player in that room. So you want to make sure you reach your guys the best way you can, put them in a position to win.
That's fantastic. If I was a Golden Bears fan, I would be fired up to have you over at that university, Hawk. Thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome to talk ball with you. Hopefully, maybe you guys go on a little bit of a run. I'm beating down your door again, trying to get you back on, because I love talking ball with you, and you always grow my knowledge base. So thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you, brother. Anytime.
Yes, sir. All right. I want to say thank you to everyone who was listening. Of course, thank you to Black Label, as always, for sponsoring this podcast, In the Trenches, and the Couch GM Network. Thank you again to Winterhawk Leighton for coming on the show. And remember, enjoy your evening. Thank you all so much for listening.
Oh, look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.